plan. And my plan, as I was graduating with my master's in petroleum engineering, was to work for industry. I had never, ever imagined that, I thought even of being in academia. But just before I finished my master's, this was the University of Alberta in University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. The department head called me one day, and he said, we think that you be good at teaching, and we need somebody to teach some courses. So one of the professors had left, and here I was trying to finish my master's. And he said, you know, we think you can teach. Would you like to be an instructor? I was young and stupid. I said, sure. So I started teaching. And I taught for 1 year. Then he said, well, you know, we can make you an assistant professor now if you want to continue teaching. I said, all right. So I taught for another year. But then I decided that I need to go back and work in industry and think these things out. Do I really want to be in academia, or do I want to work in industry, which I did for some time. And finally I decided that I should do a PhD and then decide if I want to be in academia or work in industry. So I went to Rice University. I did a PhD in chemical engineering, and that really convinced me that I wanted to have control over the kind of things I did. You know, there's a lot of independence when you're in academia. You can choose what you want to do as long as you do it well and have good connections with industry and other funding agencies, you can do well. So I then at that stage decided that really I wanted to be in academia, but I have always been interested in connections with industry. That's why I started the computer modeling group. I started another very successful company called Neo Technology Consultants with one of my colleagues. One is dealing with reservoir modeling, the other was dealing with multi-phase flow in pipes. So my interest has always been in solving practical problems, but I like working with students, I like the freedom of being in academia. So it depends on what you want to do, and I really agree with Professor Jensen on one point, that you should have a plan, but be prepared to change your plans. You have to have a plan, otherwise you really don't get anywhere, but prepare to change. And I had a plan, but forces beyond my control kept changing my plan.
Yeah.
So you adapt to it and you continue with it.
I think I've actually never had a plan. In fact, people are asking me now what I'm doing, whether I'm retired or not, and my answer is, I'm not sure. I have no idea what my plan is.
Well, it takes all kinds.
Yeah. But I just want to emphasize one thing Jan Dirk said in response to your question, Raphael. If you look at the four people on the stage, none of us have degrees in petroleum engineering. I don't think, unless you have.
I do. I have
undergraduate. But we all have PhDs in other areas.
Yeah,
right. And I've never taken a course in engineering. But what allows people to make the transition is they can understand things like engineering science, you know, fluid dynamics, that sort of stuff. And they have a strong mathematical background. And with that, you really, truly can move from one engineering discipline to another. Now, one problem with petroleum engineers, particularly our undergraduates, is historically, if they don't get a job in the petroleum engineering industry, there are some schools that are exceptions to that. I think people in California, maybe with all the Google and stuff, but generally, they have to get a job in petroleum engineering, whereas people that get a chemi background or math background even have a much wider range of opportunities, and that is sort of a problem. The other question about academic versus research versus industry, when I started, they were almost all the same. If you went to mobile research, they were academic. I mean,
Right.
they could work on problems for 5 or 6 years and not get anywhere. That's all changed, and honestly, I don't know how my esteemed colleagues feel, but that can have, I think that sort of can have a negative impact on what's going on in universities now, because now they don't value long-term research, so they want universities not just to be applied in the sense, no matter what we do theoretically, we always want it to be applied to a practical problem. But it sometimes focuses to do things more quickly and not really understand things as fundamentally as we should, because we need the research funding and we sort of do somewhat more practical things. And that really doesn't worry me because I'm old, but I mean, it worries me long-term for academic research. And, you know, maybe there are places like Stanford and UT that are strong enough that they can still do the fundamental, but most places it's becoming really hard for academics to, we're being forced to focus more and more on short-term applications, which I understand, but I'm saying I think you miss some of the longer-term value when you do that. It's always hard to quantify the benefits to a company of long-term basic research. So.
Thank you.